Hi friends, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for being here. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. If you're not new, thanks for coming back. Always happy to have you. I like to do a lot of books, lifestyle, reading content here on this channel, so if that's something that interests you, make sure you think about hitting that subscribe button and sticking around to hang out with us. Today we have another book review. I have been reading quite a bit in 2023. I mentioned it in my previous book review, which was I think for From Blood and Ash. May or may not be due to the fact that I'm currently unemployed, but either way we're taking it as a win because I'm reading a lot of really great things. Today's book I'm super excited to talk about because I haven't seen a lot about it, but I have a friend, Colleen, who read this book and it was on her like top 5 or 10 from 2022 and she's super excited about it, so it definitely made me want to read it. There's a cat somewhere in my bookcase and I don't know where, but I have a feeling something's going to fall. If you clicked on this video, you know the book that we're talking about today, but we are talking about Big Boned by Jo Watson. This book has been sitting on my shelf for a little bit. I want to say I got it in like December or so, but I did want to read it when I was filming a 24-hour readathon, which I'm just realizing now I never actually posted. That's unfortunate because I sacrificed my sleep health to film that video. But anyway, I got it and I did want to read it during that video, but I ended up not getting to it. And then it was not on my January TBR, but it was on my February one, which will be linked in the cards and in the description box if you want to go see all the things that I want to read in the month of February this year. I was very drawn by this title. It made me excited to see. I love curvy representation. It also kind of gave me Eleanor and Park / Fangirl by Rainbow Roll vibes. This is very much the color scheme of the version of Fangirl that I had, but also Eleanor Park features a curvy redheaded teenager, which is what we have going on here. I have been really missing YA realistic fiction, and I have been like kind of wanting those romances like Sarah Dessen and things like that these past couple of weeks. So Big Boned, kind of just what the doctor ordered, honestly. I did pick this book also recently, and I mentioned it in my February TBR video, that I have just not been feeling super great about my body lately. I haven't been working out as much as I normally do. I haven't been able to eat as healthy as I normally like to, and just not feeling super great. And I feel like a lot of people have periods of this where they go kind of up and down in their confidence level. So I wanted a book that had some body positivity and just like feeling empowered in your own skin and feeling beautiful and confident in your own skin. And I was really hoping that that's what this book would be about, and it absolutely is. Before we get into this review, let me give you a quick summary of what Big Boned is all about, and then we can talk about my thoughts on it. But first, have you read Big Boned? What did you think? What were your thoughts? Do you want to read it? Or are there any other books that kind of fit this vibe that I should be on the lookout for? Let me know in the comments. Big Boned is about a teenager named Lori Patty Palmer who lives in Cape Town, South Africa, which we'll get into, but it was such a cool setting to learn about. She's dealing with a lot of difficult life changes while she's in high school. She's also fuller figured and a bigger, curvier body. She's always kind of struggled with her self-confidence. She's been bullied in the past by other kids in her school for her figure and her size. She's dealing with her parents' recent divorce, and she's also kind of balancing moving to a new school system while also taking care of her brother who has autism. She is kind of coming to this new school. She went to an art school in Johannesburg and she's now moving to a coastal kind of town. I want to say it's Cape Town. Yes, Clifton, Cape Town, South Africa, which is on the coast, beautiful waters. And she's kind of having to go to this school in this new town where everybody is slender and slim and toned and muscled and athletic, and she just feels truly like a fish out of water. When she gets there, she's trying to figure out how to make friends, how to miss her friends that she left behind. She's reconciling her parents' divorce and rebuilding a relationship with her dad who cheated on her mom, and is getting remarried. Her mom, who has been kind of having a midlife crisis, trying to rebuild her identity post-divorce, and has kind of left her kids by the wayside, where Lori has had to pick up and kind of be a parent to both her and her brother Zach. Are you chilling out now? Are you calm now? So that is Big Boned kind of in a nutshell. That's the premise we're working with. This book is gonna be a little bit more spoilery than I tend to like because there are so many aspects of this book that I really enjoyed that I do have to spoil some things for to talk about. I am just gonna come out and say, and I gave this book 5 stars. 5 stars right off the bat. At first, I was not super sure about this book. I wasn't sure what the writing was going to be like. I've never heard of Jo Watson before. It is a Wattpad published novel. I used to write on Wattpad, so I am quite familiar with the Wattpad platform, but it's been a while since I've seen a Wattpad published novel, so I wasn't sure what to expect, but I actually really liked this book. I think Lori as a character is so candid and honest about her feelings, and it's so relatable to how she talks about her body and her insecurities and what she's dealing with and how she kind of views herself. And I found it very relatable because I feel like I've had similar thoughts myself in the past, so I can totally get being a teenager and feeling that way, which was really refreshing to see. And it's very honest about being a bigger person in this society. She also talks about like the body positivity movement on Instagram and how it can be isolating for people, which was an interesting perspective to read more about, because I feel like I tend to look at it through rose-colored glasses and not necessarily as isolating for people who don't love their bodies and don't feel confident and comfortable in their bodies. I talked about this a little bit already, but I really loved the setting. I've never read a book based in South Africa before, so it was cool to hear the descriptions of different places like Johannesburg and Cape Town, and to just learn more about like South African culture and kind of the varied landscapes and monuments and things that you get. I really felt like I was in Cape Town, if that makes sense. So I really enjoyed the setting, and I felt like obviously these are relatable and global experiences, but like it was cool to be like, yeah, somebody in South Africa or grew up in South Africa can have the same kind of feelings that I feel living here. Like it's a global feeling and struggle, and you're not alone in that struggle. I have to say I quite enjoyed the representation throughout this book. I feel like Jo Watson hit most, if not every kind of diversity that you can. She's talking about size, she addresses race issues, she talks about the LGBTQ plus community. She also talks about different abilities and neurodivergence and neurotypical people. She just brings up so many different characters that are so varied and come from different backgrounds that it just creates like such a cool cast of characters. She has a character that's adopted. She features people that have ADHD and autism. Those are 2 very big characters in this book. She features characters of different races and different sexualities, all kind of throughout this book, and they are such well-rounded and wonderful characters that are all interconnected so well. It's very cool to see Lori discover more about herself while she also interacts with other people and discovers more about that. I love that Jo Watson presents all these different kind of peoples and these different experiences. I feel like it's a book that many people, if not all people, can find somebody or see an experience that resonates with them or reflects their own, which I really appreciate and I love to see in books. She also talks about really real issues. I talk about this a lot with YA. I think it comes from a teaching background, from being a former teacher. I appreciate seeing topics in YA books that high schoolers are dealing with and facing and should be talking about and are not taboo or secret or anything like that. She talks about dealing with parents that have alcoholism or have addiction struggles and how that's impacted their decisions around alcohol use. She talks about sex amongst teenagers and like how to deal with flirting and dating and the weird navigating the dating scene as a teenager, which I think is so relevant and I think a lot of kids would appreciate. This was a book I honestly felt like I wanted to read with my students and like talk about with them. This is a book I really did want to read and talk about with my students. I felt like they would have appreciated it. It would have had a lot of like open and candid conversations, and I think it's just overall a really positive message to share with kids. It also talks about things like applying to college and figuring out your life plan and how to have the next chapter of your life after high school. How do you maintain your relationships? How do those relationships evolve? How do you make them work? And things like that, which I feel like are difficult to talk about in person, but it's comforting to read about in a book. One thing that I also do really appreciate, and is a topic I love to see in YA and children's literature, is Lori talks very candidly about going to therapy and her mental health issues. This book, I I have questions for Jo Watson. Like, is she actually a therapist? Because we see a lot of Lori in session with her therapist, working through issues and having conversations and having kind of those like light bulb moments that you have in therapy where you have a breakthrough or you realize something for the first time. And I wonder if Jo Watson is actually a therapist. Lori's therapy seemed pretty dang effective. Lori talks about medication for her anxiety and for her mental health issues and how she has to take it regularly. We see her in session, we see her having these conversations and kind of how her therapist guides her to a better acceptance of herself or gives her actual constructive exercises that can help her mental health and her confidence. And while I was reading it, it was really kind of refreshing. It felt like I was going to therapy, honestly, as cheesy as that sounds. And some of these activities or these homework assignments that her therapist gave Lori, I thought would be really helpful to do even on my own. For example, like one of the first assignments that her therapist gives her is to write a list of things that she likes about herself. And I'm like, that's such a easy thing to do in hindsight. Like, it's a small task to do, but I wonder what I would say about myself, and it made me want to actually sit down and do that. And I think that would be really cool for kids to see. And I think that young adult, the intended audience for this, the things that are discussed, the things that Lori struggles with are, I feel like, common feelings for people in high school. I feel like, or really at any age, honestly, I feel like these feelings of insecurity and confidence surrounding the body and how you look are pretty raw in our society. And I think this would be a comforting read for anybody, no matter their size, but especially for fuller figured bodies. There are parts of her body that Lori is really uncomfortable with and really self-conscious about. And going to therapy and talking through them, and throughout the course of this book, Lori learns to embrace and accept those parts of herself and love those parts of herself, which is, I think, great. And I think everybody could benefit from seeing in literature and reading about. I don't know, it definitely helped me. I read these books while I was in a bikini on the beach in Puerto Rico and I was not feeling my best, but I did it anyway. And it made me feel really great by the end to read this book and to see somebody coming to terms with loving their body the way it is and not feeling like they need to change their body, which is great. And I think everyone could benefit and appreciate reading. She also talks about relationships with food and how, you know, influences from other people have made her kind of had not the healthiest relationship with food, or make her extra aware of her relationship with food, which is something that I feel like a lot of people experience. And it was refreshing to see kind of written out. I love the candidness of this book. Jo Watson even explains directly that people use euphemisms like bigger boned and fuller figured or curvaceous or voluptuous instead of just saying the word fat. Like, how come people shy away from the word fat? It's not a dirty word, it's not anything like that, which made me kind of change my perspective and think about that. I feel like I hear those words all the time and I use them all the time, but why am I afraid to say the word fat? There are a lot of reflective and thought-provoking moments that we see Lori either thinking internally or after a conversation with somebody or after an exchange that are really, really kind of eye-opening. For example, she's talking about intimacy and her own femininity and like being confident in her body, and she says something about like being fat is either fetishized or it's disgusting, and there's no middle ground or happy medium. So many like lines and places throughout this book that just made me think about my own relationship or my own perspective on bodies and body types and body image. And it was kind of refreshing to see and to think about and to have my perspective pushed and to think a little bit more about these things. We see so much growth in Lori throughout the course of this book, and it was really, really sweet and really inspiring. I felt like she was a very real character. She had very real emotions and experiences, and I was rooting for her from the beginning. I thought she was funny, I thought she was witty, I thought she was unique. She's an artist, she's a beautiful person, she's such a thoughtful and caring person. She stands up for herself, she speaks her mind, but she has things that she has to overcome and develop, and she does throughout the course of this book. One of the biggest things I appreciated about this book that I did not necessarily expect but I kind of hoped for was the romance aspect of this book. I thought it was so sweet and wholesome and kind, and it also made me rethink my own kind of perspective again on body image. Lori comes to this new school, and she, over the course of her being there, her first couple of weeks, she meets the like big jock on campus. Jake. Jake is his name. Jake is a water polo player. He's very handsome. The whole school wants to smooch him. And he also has a sister who is neurodivergent and goes to the same school that Lori's brother Zach goes to. And Jake also volunteers there and works with the kids. Over the course of the novel, Lori and Jake, kind of through their siblings, spend more time together and slowly start to fall for each other. I had a sneaking suspicion that Jake was going to fall for Lori, but honestly for a bit I was like, it was kind of eye-opening because my brain was like, that doesn't happen. But why can't it happen? Why have I accepted that it doesn't happen? This book really made me challenge my thinking in terms of body image and size, and it was really, really great to read. It was a fantastic experience. I didn't want to let myself believe that Lori could end up with a hot guy, and she does. Damn it, she ends up with the hot, attractive jock. And that made me so happy because he was so sweet. He loved her body for what it was. He also loved her beyond just what she looked like, but for who she was as a person, as a great older sister who loved her brother, who as an artist, as somebody different, as somebody who wants to make a change and make a difference. He just loved her for her, and I thought that was so wholesome and so good to see. Not only to see that from Jake's perspective and to see Jake's feelings for Lori evolve into love, but also to see Lori evolve to accept that love from Jake and let herself feel worthy for somebody loving her like that, which is so good, so empowering. So many people need to hear that message, and for people to see that kind of play out, I think is a message that we need to be spreading more and more in our media. I've said it before, but I appreciate the candidness. I appreciate Jill Watson sharing very real experiences and real people. I loved watching Lori grow through all of these challenges she has to go through, and to the end come out on top. Spoiler alert, it's a happy ending where she's accepting herself as an artist and she's going out and living her life for her and not for other people, where she is learning to accept and love her body, to accept love from other people, all sorts of things. Like, it was just a beautiful read. It was the like ray of positivity that I needed this month, and I'm very happy to have read it, and that's why I gave it 5 stars. Like I said so many times, this book challenged my own thinking and my own perspective on my body image, on my body type, on what we see on social media, how people interact, just how overall we treat and think about different body types, right? And our preconceived notions, or the things that we have come to accept that we should be challenging. And that is like truly, to be a little bit cheesy, the epitome of the impact of reading, right? To challenge and change your perspective, or to make you think about something, or to question what you've just come to accept. I loved it. I loved it. This was such a fantastic reading experience. It's one I wish I could share with more people. I wish I could have talked about this with my students. I think that they really would have enjoyed this book. Oh, I can't say enough things. It was truly a joy to read Big Boned. There have been so many books that I've read that I've loved, but I've still had something I would change or something that I would fix or do differently. And I don't have one for this book, quite honestly. I think Jill Watson did a fantastic job with this book, and I think so many more people should read it and talk about it. It is truly a joy to read. I read this super quickly as well. I read this literally in 24 hours. It's almost 400 pages, so it's not the shortest read, but it moves so quickly. You see a beautiful setting, you see a beautiful cast of characters, a beautiful main character. You see real life issues and different backgrounds and histories and stories coming together, and you see somebody grow into a beautiful, like, confident and happy human, which what more could you ask for in a read, right? Again, 5 out of 5 stars. This book truly was fantastic and truly a joy, and it made me want to buy a succulent. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. Though I have also killed a succulent. Anyway, like I said, I don't really have any critiques or things that I would change about this book, which I think says a lot, but that is all I have for you guys today for my review of Big Boned by Jo Watson. Like I said, if you've read it, let me know what you think down below, because I thought this was a truly fantastic read, and I'd love to share it with more people. If you have other books that have changed your perspective or taught you something that you needed to learn or told you something that you really needed to hear, leave those in the comments down below for me. I would love to hear what you guys think, and I will see you guys in my next video. Leave me a... There's this little like lily pad succulent guy that matches what's on the books. Leave me that in the comments down below. And I also did want to say in this video, you can always see what video is coming next in the description box. I have a link to my last posted video and a teaser of the next video coming up down in the description box if you're ever curious. I will see you guys in my next one. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and happy reading.